Hey everybody, today I want to discuss the new patch that Blizzard just released, buffing Sylvanas, Tychus, Illidan, releasing Dahaka, and adding picks and bans into the game. And I want to kind of share my impression on, I think, Blizzard's intent on what they're planning on doing, and also why I think Sylvanas might just be broken. Very, very awesomely broken, though, in a way that she actually now fits into almost every meta, but might be a little bit too punishing. And not as punishing as Li Ming, which I think is literally the most uncounterplayable champion in the game, and Zul, who now has a new non-counterplayable snare, which you literally cannot stop once it's attached to you, and it makes you feel like a chump once it's on you, and you basically get wrecked if you're a carry, and all sorts of stuff. Zul's got his purpose, I'm sure. So here we go. The first thing that really shocked me is mostly I play ranged assassins. I love playing ranged assassins in this game. I used to play League of Legends. I always wanted to look cool while I play League of Legends, so here we are. League of Legends has become a mess, a disaster, and because the champion pool in this game is still kind of low, and because every map is based on team objectives, this game is definitely more from my style and allows you to play your roles like you should. And I feel like the passives of each character in this game really stand point to what their role is, especially in the ranged assassin classes. So Sylvanas is alone a ranged specialist. Before the patch, she, in team fight wise, she was either someone who engaged on accident and got caught and got out and made it, or she kept mid to long range harassment going on. Your Q, yes, is great for punishing people that escape, and you can spam it all the time and then E out, but I feel like her in-your-face fighting is not on par with Vala or even Nova for that standpoint. But her passive alone, the ability to get rid of mercenaries, basically stun them for a second, stun buildings for a second, stun forts for a second, was really, really creative. And the fact that her W would still kind of spread its poison and stuff like that it's good. It's good. But they did a few changes that I think that there's probably going to be nerfed, and the first one is really paralysis. Now, the 75% is, I think, just a little bit too high. It makes it so you can trade so effectively in lane against someone who has to sit near the minion wave, whether you get them to back off on you, you wait to throw your W on them and make it bounce to the minions, and then you out-trade them because their minions won't attack, so it counters pushes. Or you're pushing the lane and they have to get close to you to harass you, and it ends up hitting that. You end up tagging them and poisoning them with your shadow dagger. Yep, that's what I thought it was. From a distance, which leads me to the next point, which I think should actually be a level 7 talent. I feel like these two should be switched. Well, not even these two should be switched because people would just always take unstable poison, but Lost Soul. Now, Lost Soul is an ability that kind of scales into the mid-late game, but to get it early game against while you're pushing is extremely strong. Granted, it does take a little while to hit level 4, and most of the time your objectives, in fact, all your objectives are really going to pop at level 3 for everything in the map, and based on the team fight, whoever hits level 4 gets this power spike. This ability is amazing. Absolutely amazing. The other two are kind of meh. Withering Fire has a tendency to hit walls all the time. It's just not a reliable spell, so doing anything that increases your Withering Fire or, anything along those lines, Lost Soul is really the way to get it. So what ends up happening is that you start a fight, you throw Lost Soul on a champion, you're down on a cooldown, you actually will end up spending your mana pool on Sylvanas in team fights now. And you can stay in that mid to close combat where you're going to get a lot more out of your Withering Fire shots than you could previously, which puts her more out of a ranged specialist and into a ranged assassin role. Granted, going toe-to-toe with Sylvanas is never a thing that Sylvanas can really do, but cleaning up kills and putting consistent damage on people is definitely a thing she can do, especially when pushing forts. On Cursed Shrine, I think is the only one that... Cursed Hollow and Cursed Shrine, I think are the only... No, Cursed Shrine is pretty much the same thing. Cursed Hollow, I think, is the only one where it doesn't shine as much unless you're up against like a Zagar or an Azebo where they have minions that, the Shadow Dagger can actually bounce off of. So you have those two abilities in conjunction with each other, keep constant damage on enemy characters, and keep constant refresh rates. Now, the rest of the talents are all pretty good. This is, obviously, you're going to choose between one of these. Usually I do the Barb Shot because it does the triple damage, and you're more than likely going to be up against a heavy boss, and it doesn't say non-bosses, so you gotta assume it's on the boss, whereas this is probably better on Cursed Shrine, but not really any other map. The Mind Control ult came out this patch, and I still find it to be a little bit too gimmicky. I find it to be a cool thing, but honestly, when you're in combat, a silence that's ranged and does a decent amount of damage is probably going to be more reliable than a Mind Control that makes you stationary, makes you channel, and unless you're ahead and you're actually pushing them, literally almost becomes inviolable because the assassins that you want to kill, you're going to pull them closer to you, and chances are, if they're ahead, they're going to kill you relatively quickly. This is also, of course, this is just more reliable. Wailing Arrow is just always going to be more reliable, and the detonation on it's amazing. You have this new tree. Windrunner, obviously no one's going to get the heal because her health pool is almost that of Tychus's. Her health is really good. I find myself almost at full health, and especially with lane pushing and getting orbs a lot, you're not going to have problems with your health. These three are up choices, but honestly I'll take the Spell Shield over all of them at this current state, because if you get Windrunner and you go in, you have 5 seconds to cast it again. And the Windrunner cast time, or the Haunting Wave cast time, is actually relatively long and is unreliable because you can just get stun locked and is completely pointless in my opinion. This is nice if you keep getting caught. So if you get caught and you pop an E, you get caught, you pop Will of the Forsaken, and you can actually trigger out your E. It's going to be okay. A lot of people don't see Sylvanas as much of a threat in a team fight because honestly, other than putting your W on people and spamming your Q and handing a good ult, it's not really going to be something where you're going to get pushed out of a team fight too often to use it. So I feel like the Spell Shield is most effective, where you basically are going to use your E, get a few more shots off, trigger your E, and just not die when they're trying to kill you while you're using your E. Vulnerability, obviously, is actually going to be a little bit better in my opinion than Evasive Fire, though if you are against a team that's easily kiteable and maybe have a Lunar on your team, it's good, but with the bouncing and the cooldown reduction of your W now, I really think Cold Embrace is probably the strongest, and Bolt of the Storm has been taken out of a lot of carries in this game. Still taking on her. It's still amazing. So where does that put us? Well, it's reduced the amount of counterplay you can do to Sylvanas in this aspect. So right now they've released a few champions that I think are pretty hard to counterplay, Li Ming probably the hardest, because if you try to pounce on her and kill her, you basically have to have a minion champ to actually take care of her. Asmodan, Zagara, things like that, or have someone with a relatively reliable son. Rexar works pretty well with the bear, because what's going to happen is if you damage her too much, she's just going to get a free escape. She's going to use her normal escape and throw a bunch of damage behind her, and she's just going to wreck you. I feel like her Disintegrate is just a little bit too long of an actual ability, as though the length of the actual Disintegrate laser is in length just too long of a range. And I think that's an issue right now. And then we have Zul, who has the first non-counterplayable stun. So what does this all mean? Well, with counterplay not being viable anymore, a little bit, with champions, and a small champion pool like Heroes of the Storm has, you have to think, what's Blizzard's intent? Well, with the dropping of the bans, you have to think, well, Blizzard must be trying to think of a way to make you ban champs. And this is my overall take on it. I think they want to give us champs to ban. Illidan's new buff has made him actually viable in the mid game and super viable in the late game as being an assassin, which has also kind of brought back Zeratul a little bit. Zeratul with Illidan is actually absolutely obnoxious for how much burst damage the two of them can put out, and a lot of people have problems seeing stealth in this game, and I don't know why, but maybe it's because I watch a lot of StarCraft. I'm not sure. But overall, that's my take on the patch. So far, I like the ideas. I like the ban phases. The fact that they're unleashing a lot of ban phases at once is kind of a little crazy for me. I don't know if... I think they're just testing the ground for the ban phases. But so far, so good with Heroes of the Storm. But I really feel like Blizzard may or may not have overstepped their bounds just a little bit, and I expect to see Sylvanas banned just because of her early game pressure and her team pressure. As when you push forts, you spread your W, you get in a fight, it spreads to like 3 or 4 champs guarding the fort, you're going to pop a W again, and that fort is never going to do anything, and it's always going to be like they're fighting without a fort. Quivering Arrows is always going to target heroes first, so if you get jumped on, you can use that, and the 0.75 seconds will give you enough time to hop out of a fight and hop back in and pop it again. So that's my impressions. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.